Every Christmas Eve for 12 years, the wealthiest woman in Chicago sat at table 12 in the city's most expensive restaurant, staring at the front door. She kept an empty chair opposite her, waiting for the daughter who ran away to marry a stranger without saying goodbye. She never showed up. But this year, the door opened, and a struggling carpenter holding his little girl's hand walked in by mistake. That little girl didn't just break the billionaire's solitude. She walked right up to the table and asked a question that would uncover a decade of family secrets and change all their lives forever. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, because this is a story about how the family you choose can save the one you lost. The snow in Chicago was relentless. It piled up against the windows of the Sapphire Room, a restaurant so exclusive that the menu didn't have prices. Inside, the air was warm and smelled of truffle oil and pine needles. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Eleanor Vance sat at table 12. She was 72, sharp-boned and elegant in a black velvet suit. Diamonds glittered at her throat. Cold, hard stones that matched the expression she wore like armor. She sat with her back straight, her hands folded on the white tablecloth. Across from her was an empty chair. A place setting was laid out. Crystal glasses, silver cutlery, a napkin folded into a swan. Mrs. Vance, the maitre d', Henri, approached softly. The kitchen is closing in 30 minutes. Should we clear the second setting? Eleanor didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the front door. No, Henri. She might be late. The snow is bad. Henri nodded sadly and backed away. He knew, just like the rest of the staff knew. The daughter wasn't coming. She hadn't come for 12 years. Eleanor took a sip of her water. The ice clicked against the glass. 12 years ago, in this very restaurant, she had given her daughter, Vanessa, an ultimatum. If you walk out that door with that man, that nobody musician, you are cut off. You are dead to me. Eleanor had been angry then, bitter. Her husband, Arthur, had just died, and she had discovered his second life. The mistresses, the secret accounts, the betrayal. She had gripped Vanessa too tight, trying to control the only thing she had left. Vanessa had looked at her with tears in her eyes, grabbed the man's hand, and walked out. Eleanor had been waiting for her to come back, broke and apologetic ever since. But the silence had stretched into a decade. A gust of cold air swept through the restaurant as the heavy front oak doors creaked open. Eleanor's heart leaped. She sat up. Is it her? It wasn't. A man stumbled in, stomping snow off heavy work boots. He was wearing a faded Carhartt jacket stained with paint and sawdust. He held the hand of a little girl, maybe 6 years old, wrapped in a puffy pink coat that was a size too small. The maitre d' rushed over, blocking their path. Sir, this is a private establishment. You cannot be in here. I'm sorry, the man said, his voice raspy from the cold. We got turned around. My truck broke down a block away. My daughter is freezing. We just need to warm up for a second before we walk to the subway. I am sorry, sir, but the dress code. Henri. Eleanor's voice cut through the room like a knife. Henri froze. Mrs. Vance. Let them stay, Eleanor said. But Mrs. Vance, the policy. I own the building, Henri. Let them stay. The man looked over at Eleanor. He looked exhausted. He had the face of a man who had been fighting the world for a long time and was slowly losing. He walked over, holding his daughter's hand tight. Thank you, ma'am. We won't be long. Just 5 minutes. Sit. Eleanor said, gesturing to the empty chair. Please. The food is already paid for. The man hesitated. He looked at the crystal glasses, then down at his dirty jeans. We really shouldn't. I don't want to mess up your table. Daddy, I'm hungry, the little girl whispered. That broke him. He nodded and lifted the girl into the empty chair. He pulled up a side chair for himself. I'm Caleb, he said. This is Mia. Eleanor, she replied. Mia looked at the empty place setting. She looked at Eleanor. Her eyes were wide and observant. Are you waiting for Santa? Mia asked. Eleanor felt a lump form in her throat. No, child. I'm waiting for my daughter. Is she lost? Yes, Eleanor whispered. She is very lost. My mommy is lost too, Mia said matter-of-factly. She went to heaven. Daddy says we can't visit her, but she watches us. Eleanor looked at Caleb. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking away. 2 years ago, Caleb said quietly. Cancer. It took everything. I'm sorry, Eleanor said. And she meant it. She looked at this man, young, strong, but broken, and saw a reflection of her own grief. But his grief was clean. Hers was complicated by guilt. "What do you do, Caleb?" Eleanor asked, trying to distract herself from the empty door. "I'm a carpenter," he said. "Framing, finish work, restoration. I fix old houses." "He fixes everything," Mia chirped, grabbing a bread roll. "He fixed our heater. And he fixed my dollhouse when the roof fell off." Caleb smiled sadly. "I try, baby. But work is slow. Nobody is hiring independent contractors right now. They all want big firms with insurance and degrees. I applied to 20 places this month," Caleb admitted to Eleanor, his guard down. "They look at my resume, no college, just trade school, and they toss it. They don't even look at my work." Eleanor reached for her purse. She pulled out a napkin. She pushed a silver pen toward him. "Show me," she said. "What?" "Draw something. Show me what you can do." Caleb looked at her, confused. But he took the pen. He sketched quickly on the linen napkin. In 30 seconds, he drew a detailed cross-section of a dovetail joint, then turned it into a sketch of a Victorian staircase banister. The lines were confident, precise. Eleanor stared at the drawing. "Arthur used to say you can tell a man's character by his hands," Eleanor murmured. "You have good hands, Caleb." "They're just hands, ma'am." "No," Eleanor said. "They are talented hands." She looked at the empty chair again. The clock on the wall struck 10 p.m. The kitchen was closing. Vanessa wasn't coming. She wasn't coming this year or next year. Eleanor felt a wave of exhaustion so deep it scared her. She was tired of the anger. She was tired of the empty penthouse. She looked at Mia, who had chocolate mousse on her nose. She looked at Caleb, who was carefully wiping it off with a gentle touch. "Caleb," Eleanor said, "do you know the Vance Hotel on Michigan Avenue?" Caleb looked up. "The old Art Deco place? The one that's been boarded up for a decade." "Yes. It was the first hotel my husband bought. It's where my daughter grew up. It's rotting from the inside out. My board of directors wants to tear it down and build condos. They say it's too expensive to save." "They're wrong," Caleb said immediately. "You don't tear down 1920s limestone. You restore it. You just need to strip the rot and reinforce the bones." "Exactly," Eleanor said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I am blocking the demolition," Eleanor said. "But I need someone to run the restoration. I need someone who cares about the bones of the building, not just the profit margin. I need a director of restoration." Caleb laughed nervously. "Mrs. Vance, look at me. I'm a guy with a truck and $40,000 in debt. I'm not an executive." "I don't need an executive," Eleanor said fiercely. "I have plenty of executives. They are sharks in suits who would sell their own mothers for a bonus. I need a craftsman. I need a father." She slid the card across the table. "Come to my office on Monday, 9 a.m. Bring your tools." "You're serious?" "I am a billionaire, Caleb. I don't joke about business. The salary is $150,000 a year. Full benefits for Mia." Caleb dropped his fork. The sound rang against the china plate. 150,000. It was freedom. It was a future. "Why?" Caleb asked. "You don't know me." "Because you came in here to warm up your daughter," Eleanor said. "Because you are fighting for your family. I stopped fighting for mine a long time ago. Maybe if I help you save yours, I can find some peace." Mia tugged on Eleanor's sleeve. "Are you still sad, Eleanor?" Eleanor looked down at the little girl. For the first time in 12 years, the knot in her chest loosened just a fraction. "Not as sad as I was an hour ago, sweetheart." Eleanor stood up. She put her coat on. "Monday, Caleb. Don't be late." She walked out of the restaurant into the snow. She didn't look back at the empty chair. For the first time, she had a new plan. Monday morning. The headquarters of Vance Global was a fortress of glass. Caleb stood in the lobby, wearing his only suit, a charcoal gray one he'd bought at Goodwill on Sunday. It was a little short in the arms. He held a toolbox in one hand and a briefcase, also Goodwill, in the other. He felt ridiculous. "You can do this, Daddy," Mia had said when he dropped her at school. "Build the castle." He took the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, he wasn't greeted by a receptionist. He was greeted by a man who looked like he smelled something bad. "Can I help you?" the man asked. He was wearing a suit that fit perfectly. He had slicked back hair and a sneer. "I'm here to see Mrs. Vance," Caleb said. "She's in a board meeting." "You must be the repairman for the HVAC." "No, I'm the new director." The man laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. "Director? You? Pal, the mailroom is in the basement." Let him through, Marcus. Eleanor stood in the doorway of the boardroom. She looked powerful. Marcus Thorne, meet Caleb Reed. He is leading the Vance Hotel project. Marcus Thorne, the CFO, stared at Caleb. His eyes scanned the cheap suit, the rough hands, the scuffed boots. This is a joke, right, Eleanor? Marcus said. You hired a laborer to manage a $50 million asset. I hired a master carpenter. Eleanor corrected. Come in, Caleb. Caleb walked past Marcus. As he passed, Marcus leaned in. Don't get comfortable, carpenter, Marcus whispered. She's senile. I run this company, and I'm going to chew you up and spit you out by Friday. Caleb stopped. He looked Marcus in the eye. He thought about the years of rejection. He thought about the cold apartment. He thought about Mia. I'm not here to get comfortable, Caleb whispered back. I'm here to work. He walked into the boardroom. Eleanor pulled out the chair to her right. Sit, she said. Caleb sat. He looked around the table at the faces of the board members, skeptical, angry, rich. Eleanor tapped the table. Gentlemen, she said, we are going to restore the Vance Hotel, and we are going to do it right. Caleb, show them the sketches. Caleb opened his briefcase. He pulled out the drawings he had made all weekend. He took a deep breath. The war had begun. The boardroom was silent, but it was the kind of silence that screamed. Caleb stood at the head of the mahogany table, his cheap thrift store briefcase open, displaying hand-drawn sketches of a staircase that had been boarded up for 20 years. Marcus Thorne, the CFO, was looking at Caleb like he was a stain on the carpet that needed to be scrubbed out. Sketches, Marcus said, his voice dripping with disdain. We are discussing a $50 million asset, and you brought us cartoons. They aren't cartoons, Caleb said, his voice steady despite the hammering in his chest. They're plans. The Vance Hotel doesn't need a demolition crew, Mr. Thorne. It needs a surgeon. The bones are good. The limestone exterior is intact. The rot is superficial. And you know this how? Marcus leaned back, checking his Rolex. Did you perform an ultrasonic structural analysis? Did you run a ground-penetrating radar scan? No, Caleb said. I walked the site. I touched the walls. I smelled the air. Damp rot smells sweet. Dry rot smells like mushrooms. The Vance smells like dust. It's dry. It's just neglected. He smells the walls, Marcus said to the board members, rolling his eyes. Eleanor, this is embarrassing. We have an offer from a developer to buy the land for $80 million. We tear it down. They build luxury condos. We walk away rich. Why are we listening to a carpenter who smells buildings? Eleanor sat at the other end of the table. She looked small in her big leather chair, but her eyes were flint. Because the last time we listened to you, Marcus, we built the Riverside Plaza, Eleanor said. And the facade cracked in 6 months because you used cheap concrete to save a nickel. Marcus stiffened. Caleb is right. Eleanor continued. That hotel is my legacy. It's where my husband started this company. It's where my daughter. She stopped, her voice catching. It's where my family lived. We are not tearing it down. Caleb has the job. The budget is approved. The budget is reckless, Marcus argued. Restoration costs 3 times as much as new construction. Then find the money, Eleanor snapped. Or I'll find a new CFO who can. She stood up, signaling the meeting was over. She walked over to Caleb. She looked tired, her skin pale and papery. You did good, she whispered. But watch your back. Marcus doesn't lose gracefully. The Vance Hotel sat on the corner of State Street like a sleeping giant. It was 12 stories of Art Deco limestone, covered in grime and pigeon droppings. The windows were boarded up with plywood. Caleb stood in the center of the lobby. It was freezing. The heating had been off for a decade. His breath came out in white puffs. He shone his flashlight around. The grand staircase was missing its railing. The crystal chandelier was gone, likely sold off years ago to pay debts. The floor was covered in cheap, peeling linoleum that someone had put down in the 90s. It's a mess, boss, a voice echoed. Caleb turned. Standing behind him was his crew. He hadn't hired the big union firms Marcus recommended. He knew they would just pad the hours and do the bare minimum. Instead, Caleb had gone back to his neighborhood. He called Big Tony, a bricklayer who was stronger than a forklift but couldn't get work because of a bad back. He called Luis, an electrician who was a genius with vintage wiring but had a record from when he was 18. He called Sarah, a young woman who could plaster a ceiling like Michelangelo but was told girls didn't belong on construction sites. It's not a mess, Tony, Caleb said, peeling back a corner of the linoleum with his knife. Underneath, he revealed a glimpse of intricate, hand-laid mosaic tile. It's a treasure chest. We just have to dig it out. Corporate ain't gonna like us, Luis said, looking at his own tattooed arms. We don't exactly fit the dress code. I don't care about the dress code, Caleb said. I care about the work. We start today. Tony, check the foundation. Luis, trace the original conduits. Sarah, start stripping the paint off the columns. Gentle. There's marble underneath. What about you, Caleb? Sarah asked. Caleb looked up at the mezzanine balcony. I'm going to find the ghosts, he said. For the next 3 weeks, Caleb lived at the hotel. He arrived at 5 a.m. and left at midnight. He worked harder than any of his crew. He wasn't just directing. He was scraping, sanding, and hammering. He felt a connection to the building. It was broken, abandoned, and judged by its surface. Just like him. Just like Eleanor. Eleanor visited every few days. She would have her driver park the Lincoln around the back so Marcus wouldn't know. She would walk in with her cane, wearing a hard hat over her perfect hair. She never interfered. She just watched. She watched Caleb sand the mahogany banisters until they glowed like embers. She watched him argue with suppliers to get the right kind of vintage brass screws. One afternoon, she found him in the ballroom on the second floor. It was a massive space with 30-foot ceilings. The walls were covered in water stains. Caleb was sitting on a bucket, eating a sandwich. Mia was with him. School was out early on Fridays, so she came to the site. She was sitting on a pile of drop cloths, drawing pictures of the castle. Hello, Eleanor. Mia chirped, waving a crayon. Hello, sweetheart, Eleanor said, smiling. Her face always softened when she saw Mia. It was like the ice melted for a few seconds. Eleanor sat on a folding chair next to Caleb. She looked up at the ceiling. My husband and I danced here, she said softly. Our 10th anniversary. There was a 20-piece orchestra on that stage. Vanessa was 12. She wore a blue velvet dress. She danced on her father's feet. Caleb stopped eating. He saw the pain in her eyes. It was raw and fresh, even after all these years. You miss them, Caleb said. I miss who we were, Eleanor corrected. Before the money ruined us. Before Arthur started staying late at the office with his assistants. Before I started freezing my heart to survive it. She looked at the stage. Vanessa loved this room. She used to sneak down here when it was closed and sing. She had a beautiful voice. Not trained, just wild. Pure. Why did she leave, Eleanor? Caleb asked gently. Really? Eleanor gripped her cane. Her knuckles turned white. Because I made her choose, Eleanor whispered. She met a man. His name was Jack. He was a guitarist. He had tattoos and no money and a beat-up van. He made her laugh. I had never seen her laugh like that. Eleanor looked at Caleb, shame flooding her face. But I was angry. Arthur had just died, and I found out he had left half his estate to a woman in New York I didn't even know existed. I felt like a fool. I felt like love was a lie. So when Vanessa brought this boy home, I snapped. She took a shaky breath. I told her that Jack was just like her father, that he would use her and leave her. I told her if she married him, I would cut her off. I told her she would never see a dime of the Vance fortune. What did she say? She looked at me. Eleanor cried softly. And she said, keep your money, mother. It's the only thing you have left to keep you warm. And she walked out. That was Christmas Eve, 12 years ago. I haven't seen her since. Caleb reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. It was a bold move for an employee, but he didn't feel like an employee right now. He felt like a father. You were scared, Caleb said. You were hurt. I was a coward, Eleanor said. I let my pride cost me my daughter. And now, I don't even know if she has children. I don't know if I'm a grandmother. Mia walked over. She had stopped drawing. She put her small hand on Eleanor's knee. You're a grandmother to me, Mia said. Eleanor let out a sob. She pulled Mia into a hug, burying her face in the girl's coat. Thank you, Eleanor wept. Thank you. Caleb watched them. He realized then that this job wasn't about saving a building. It was about saving a woman who was drowning in regret. He made a silent vow. He was going to finish this hotel. He was going to make it perfect. And maybe, just maybe, if he built it, the daughter would come back. But Marcus Thorne wasn't going to let that happen. The sabotage started small. Tools went missing. Deliveries were delayed. Then it got worse. In the 4th week, the scaffolding in the lobby collapsed overnight. No one was hurt, but it set them back 10 days. Caleb found cut marks on the ropes. Then the inspector arrived. A man named Garris, who smelled like cheap cigars and corruption. "I'm shutting you down," Garris said, slapping a red sticker on the front door. "Unsafe working conditions. Non-union labor. I need to see permits for every single worker." "I have the permits," Caleb said, holding up a binder. "Everything is legal." "I don't like your tone," Garris sneered. "I'm ordering a full structural review. That takes 6 weeks. Until then, nobody enters." 6 weeks. That would kill the project. They had a deadline for the Christmas gala, the grand reopening. If they missed it, the board would vote to sell the building. Caleb stormed into the corporate office. He marched right past the secretary and kicked open the door to Marcus Thorne's office. Marcus was putting golf balls into a cup. He didn't look surprised. "Get Garris off my back," Caleb growled. "I don't know what you're talking about," Marcus said, putting another ball. "Is there a problem with the site?" "I warned Eleanor. Old buildings are money pits." "You paid him," Caleb accused. "You paid him to red tag us." Marcus stood up. He walked over to Caleb. He was smooth, polished, and evil. "You're out of your depth, carpenter," Marcus said softly. "You think because Eleanor likes you, you're safe? Eleanor is sick. Have you noticed how her hands shake? Have you noticed how she loses her breath?" Caleb froze. He had noticed. "She has heart failure," Marcus said casually. "Her doctors told her to step down months ago, but she won't. And now she has this obsession with the hotel. And you." Marcus poked Caleb in the chest. "You are killing her. Every crisis, every delay, every argument with the board spikes her blood pressure. You are literally working her to death." "I'm trying to give her something to live for," Caleb said. "You're giving her a fantasy. And when it crashes, and it will crash, it will finish her." Marcus opened a drawer. He pulled out a checkbook. "Walk away, Caleb. I'll give you $50,000. Cash. You can pay off your debts. You can take your little girl to Disney World. Just disappear. Let me sell the hotel. Eleanor will be upset for a week, but she'll be rich and she'll be resting. You save her life by leaving." Caleb looked at the check. $50,000. It was more money than he had ever seen. He thought about Eleanor hugging Mia. He thought about the blue velvet dress story. "You don't know her," Caleb said. "You think money fixes everything. But she doesn't want money. She wants her memories." Caleb ripped the check out of Marcus's hand. Marcus smiled. "Smart man." Caleb tore the check in half. Then he tore it again. He threw the confetti in Marcus's face. "I'm not going anywhere," Caleb said. "And if you send Garris back to my site, I will go to the press and tell them exactly how much you paid him." He turned and walked out. He felt brave. He felt strong. But Marcus was right about one thing. Eleanor was sick. 2 days later, Caleb was on the roof of the hotel, inspecting the copper flashing. His phone rang. It was Henri, the maitre d' from the Sapphire Room. "Mr. Reed." Henri sounded panicked. "You need to come. It's Mrs. Vance." "Is she at the restaurant?" "Yes. She came for lunch. She collapsed. The ambulance is on the way." Caleb dropped his tools. He ran for the stairs. When he got to the hospital, it was chaos. Doctors were running. He found Eleanor's personal assistant crying in the waiting room. "What happened?" Caleb asked, breathless. "Her heart," the assistant sobbed. "It just stopped. They revived her, but she's in a coma. The doctors say it's critical." Caleb slumped against the wall. He felt like he had been punched in the gut. Marcus Thorne walked out of the ICU. He saw Caleb. He didn't look smug this time. He looked serious. "I told you," Marcus said grimly. "I told you this would happen." "Shut up," Caleb whispered. "She's dying, Caleb. And the board is meeting in an hour. With Eleanor incapacitated, I am the acting CEO." Marcus buttoned his jacket. "My first act will be to terminate the restoration project. I'm selling the hotel tomorrow. The deal is already drafted." "You can't," Caleb said. "It's her legacy. It's an asset," Marcus said cold-heartedly. "And I'm liquidating it. Pack your tools, carpenter. You're fired. And if you step foot on the property, I'll have you arrested for trespassing." Marcus walked away. Caleb stood alone in the hospital hallway. He had lost his job. He had failed Eleanor. And now, the one thing she cared about, the hotel where she last saw her daughter, was going to be turned into condos. He walked into Eleanor's room. She looked tiny in the bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hissed. He held her hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I tried." He went to leave. He had to go tell the crew. He had to tell Mia. But as he picked up his jacket, something fell out of Eleanor's purse, which was sitting on the chair. It was an old, yellowed envelope. Caleb picked it up. He didn't mean to pry, but he saw the handwriting on the front. It was faded script. To Mother. It was unopened. Caleb turned it over. The postmark was from 12 years ago. The return address was a P.O. box in Nashville, Tennessee. He frowned. Eleanor said she never heard from Vanessa. She said Vanessa never wrote. Caleb looked closer at the envelope. It had been opened and resealed with tape. Someone had read it and then hidden it. He realized with a jolt who it must have been. Arthur. Her cheating husband. He must have intercepted the letter years ago to keep them apart, to keep Eleanor angry and controlled. Caleb opened the letter. Dear Mom, I know you're angry. I know you hate Jack. But I need you to know I'm safe. We are in Nashville. Jack is teaching music. I'm painting. We are happy, Mom. We don't have money, but we have each other. I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother. A little boy. We want to name him Arthur, after Dad. Please, call me. I miss you. Love, Nessie. Caleb read it twice. His hands were shaking. She had a grandson. A boy named Arthur. He would be 12 years old now. Eleanor didn't know. She thought her daughter hated her. She thought she was alone. Caleb looked at the woman in the bed. She was dying of a broken heart. Medicine couldn't save her. But this could. Caleb put the letter in his pocket. He looked at the clock. Marcus was selling the hotel tomorrow. Eleanor might not wake up. He had one chance. He ran out of the hospital. He jumped into his rusted Ford pickup truck. He called Mrs. Higgins. I'm picking up Mia. Pack a bag. Where are you going? Mrs. Higgins asked. Nashville, Caleb said. I have to find a ghost. The interstate between Chicago and Nashville is 500 miles of asphalt and cornfields. On a stormy night in December, it felt like 5 million miles. Caleb Reed drove his rusted Ford pickup truck like he was outrunning the devil. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. The windshield wipers slapped back and forth, fighting a losing battle against the sleet. In the passenger seat, Mia was asleep. She was curled up under a heavy wool blanket, clutching her teddy bear. Her small chest rose and fell in a rhythm that was the only peaceful thing in Caleb's world. Caleb looked at the digital clock on the dashboard. 3:42 a.m. He was running on coffee and adrenaline. He hadn't slept in 24 hours. In his pocket, the yellowed letter burned like a hot coal. To Mother. From Nessie. He kept replaying the scene in the hospital. Marcus Thorne's smug face. The machines beeping around Eleanor. The realization that the strongest woman he had ever met was dying of a broken heart because of a lie. Hold on, Eleanor. Caleb whispered to the dark road. Just hold on. He thought about the text he had received from Henri, the maitre d' at the Sapphire Room, just before he left the city. Mr. Reed, I heard about Mrs. Vance. Please tell me she's okay. She missed her reservation. It's the first time in 12 years. She hadn't missed the reservation because she forgot. She missed it because her heart had finally given out. Caleb pressed the gas pedal harder. The truck rattled, protesting the speed. I know. Girl. Caleb patted the dashboard. I know you're tired. Me too. But we have to find a ghost. Nashville, Tennessee, 8:15 a.m. Nashville was waking up to a gray, drizzly morning. It wasn't freezing like Chicago, but the damp cold settled into your bones. Caleb pulled into a gas station to refuel. He bought a map. He bought a juice box and a donut for Mia, who was waking up, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, she yawned. Are we there? We're in Nashville, baby, Caleb said, looking at the map. Music City. Is Eleanor here? No, sweetheart. Eleanor is, she's resting. We're here to find someone who can make her feel better. Caleb looked at the return address on the envelope. P.O. Box 404, East Nashville. A P.O. box wasn't a house. It was a dead end. He sat in the truck, staring at the envelope. He felt a wave of panic. What was he doing? He had driven 6 hours on a hunch. He had dragged his daughter across state lines based on a 12-year-old letter. Think, Caleb, he muttered. You fix things. How do you fix this? He looked at the letter again. Jack is teaching music. I'm painting. Jack. A musician. Vanessa. A painter. Caleb pulled out his phone. He had 12% battery left. He opened Google. He searched, Vanessa Vance Nashville art. No results. He searched, Vanessa Painter Nashville. Thousands of results. He tried a different angle. The husband. Jack musician Nashville guitar. Too vague. He looked at the letter one more time. The handwriting. It was artistic, loopy. And at the bottom of the page, drawn in ink, was a tiny symbol. A sparrow. Vanessa loved painting. Caleb typed, Sparrow Art Studio, Nashville. A result popped up. The Sparrow Collective. Community Art and Music Center. East Nashville. Caleb's heart skipped a beat. He clicked on the About Us page. Founders, Jack and Vanessa Miller. Miller. She changed her name. That's why Eleanor never found her. That's why the private investigators failed. She didn't just run, she disappeared. He tapped the address into his GPS. Bingo, Caleb whispered. The Sparrow Collective was a converted warehouse in a funky, artsy neighborhood. Murals covered the brick walls. A garden out front was overgrown with winter ivy. Caleb parked the truck. He picked up Mia. Okay, baby. I need you to be big today. Can you be big? Mia nodded solemnly. I'm big. They walked to the front door. It was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of turpentine and coffee. The space was open and bright. On one side, children were taking a pottery class. On the other, someone was giving a guitar lesson. Caleb walked up to the front desk. A young woman with blue hair was sketching on a pad. Can I help you? She asked. I'm looking for Vanessa, Caleb said. Vanessa Miller. She's in the back studio, the girl said, pointing through the double doors. But she's teaching a class right now. It's an emergency, Caleb said. He walked past the desk. He pushed open the double doors. The room was filled with easels. About 10 students were painting bowls of fruit. Standing at the front of the room was a woman. She was tall. She wore paint-splattered overalls and a messy bun. But when she turned around, Caleb felt like he had been punched in the gut. She had Eleanor's cheekbones. She had Eleanor's sharp chin. She had the same steel-gray eyes, though hers were warmer, crinkled at the corners with laugh lines. It was her. It was the ghost. Caleb walked into the room. The students stopped painting. Excuse me, Vanessa said, wiping her hands on a rag. Class is in session. You can't be in here. Vanessa? Caleb asked. She froze. Her eyes narrowed. Who are you? Are you a bill collector? No, Caleb said. My name is Caleb Reed. I'm a carpenter from Chicago. The color drained from her face. Chicago. I work for your mother, Caleb said. The warmth in Vanessa's eyes vanished instantly. It was replaced by a wall of ice. She crossed her arms. I don't have a mother, Vanessa said coldly. If she sent you here to bully me, you can turn around and leave. I told her 12 years ago I didn't want her money. She didn't send me, Caleb said. She doesn't know I'm here. Then why are you here? Because she's dying, Caleb said. The room went dead silent. A student dropped a paintbrush. Vanessa stood still. Her hand gripped the rag tighter. Is this a trick? She whispered. Another manipulation. Come home. Vanessa, I'm sick. She pulled that when I was 18 to stop me from going to Europe. It's not a trick, Caleb said. She had a massive heart attack yesterday. She's in the ICU at Northwestern. The doctors don't think she's going to make it through the week. Vanessa swayed slightly. A man stepped out from the shadows of the room. He was tall, with shaggy hair and a guitar strapped to his back. Jack. He put a hand on Vanessa's back to steady her. We're sorry to hear that, Jack said gently. But Vanessa hasn't spoken to her in a decade. Eleanor made it very clear she wasn't welcome. That's not true, Caleb said. It is true. Vanessa snapped, her anger flaring to cover her pain. She told me I was dead to her. She told me if I married Jack, I was cut off. She never called. She never wrote. I sent her a letter when I was pregnant with Arthur. I begged her to call me. She ignored it. Vanessa's voice broke. She ignored her own grandson. So don't tell me she cares. She cares about her hotels. She cares about her reputation. She doesn't care about me. Caleb reached into his pocket. He pulled out the yellowed envelope. She never saw the letter, Caleb said. He held it out. Vanessa stared at it. What is that? I found this in her purse at the hospital. Caleb lied. He didn't want to explain he found it in the old office. It was too complicated. It was hidden. Look at the seal, Vanessa. It was opened and retaped. Vanessa took the envelope. She looked at the tape marks. Your father, Caleb said gently. Arthur. He intercepted it. He hid it from her. He wanted to keep you apart. He wanted to keep Eleanor angry so he could control her. Vanessa opened the letter. She saw her own handwriting from 12 years ago. She never saw it. Vanessa whispered. No, Caleb said. And she thinks you hate her. She thinks you never wrote. Caleb stepped closer. Vanessa, your mother goes to the Sapphire Room every Christmas Eve. She sits at table 12. She sets an empty place for you. She waits until closing time. She has done that for 12 years. Vanessa looked up. Tears were streaming down her face now. She waits for me. Every year, Caleb said. She told me the only thing she wants, the only thing she would trade her entire fortune for, is to know you're okay. She told me she was a coward for letting you go. Mia, who had been hiding behind Caleb's leg, stepped forward. She tugged on Vanessa's overalls. She's really nice, Mia said softly. She bought me chicken fingers. And she cries when she thinks no one is looking. Vanessa looked down at Mia. Then she looked at Jack. Jack nodded. It's your choice, Ness. But if she didn't know, if she's been waiting. Vanessa looked at the letter in her hand. She looked at the life she had built, the studio, the students, the freedom. Then she thought about her mother waiting in a restaurant alone. Is she really dying? Vanessa asked, her voice trembling. Her heart is failing, Caleb said. She gave up, Vanessa. She stopped fighting. You are the only thing that can bring her back. Vanessa wiped her face with the back of her hand. She took a deep breath. Where is your car? She asked. Out front, Caleb said. But it's a two-seater truck. Take our van, Jack said, tossing Caleb a set of keys. It fits the kids. Kids? Caleb asked. Just then, the back door of the studio burst open. Two boys ran in. One was about 12, Arthur. The other was maybe 8. Mom, Arthur yelled. Leo ate my sandwich. Vanessa looked at her sons. Then she looked at Caleb. Let's go to Chicago, Vanessa said. I think it's time Arthur met his grandmother. The race Interstate 65 North 2 p.m. The van was old, smelling of stale French fries and guitar strings, but it was fast. Caleb drove. Jack sat in the passenger seat navigating. Vanessa sat in the middle row with the kids, staring out the window, clutching the old letter. The weather was getting worse. The storm that had hit Chicago was moving south, meeting them halfway. Snow swirled across the highway in blinding sheets. We have to beat the storm, Caleb said, gripping the wheel. How much time do we have? Jack asked. Not enough, Caleb said. His phone buzzed. It was Sarah, the plasterer from his crew. Caleb, Sarah yelled over the noise of construction. Where are you? I'm handling something. What's wrong? It's Marcus. He's at the site. He brought a demolition crew. Caleb nearly swerved off the road. What? He's not waiting for the sale, Sarah said frantically. He says the building is a safety hazard. He got an emergency order from the city. They're putting up fencing. They're going to wreck the lobby fixtures tomorrow morning to prep for sale. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, Caleb shouted. He can't do that. He's doing it, Caleb. He's firing us. He's kicking everyone out. You have to get back here. I'm 4 hours away, Caleb said. Sarah, listen to me. Stall him. Lock the gates. Park the trucks in front of the entrance. Do whatever you have to do. Caleb, he has police with him. I don't care. Do not let them touch that hotel. That is Eleanor's heart. He hung up. He looked in the rearview mirror. Vanessa was watching him. What's happening? She asked. Your mother's CFO, Caleb said grimly. He's trying to destroy the hotel before she wakes up. He wants to erase her legacy. Vanessa's eyes hardened. She leaned forward. The Vance Hotel? She asked. The one on Michigan Avenue? Yeah. That's where I grew up, Vanessa said fiercely. That's where I learned to paint. That's my home. He's trying to turn it into condos, Caleb said. Vanessa looked at Jack. Jack looked back, a grin spreading across his face. Well, Jack said, that sounds like a terrible idea. Vanessa turned to Caleb. Drive faster. Chicago, 8 p.m. The city was paralyzed by the blizzard. Cars were abandoned on the shoulders of the Dan Ryan Expressway. Caleb navigated the van through the slush, dodging snowplows. They headed straight for Northwestern Hospital. Drop us at the entrance, Vanessa said. You go to the hotel. Stop that man. I'm coming with you to see Eleanor, Caleb said. No, Vanessa said. She put a hand on his shoulder. Caleb, you did your part. You brought me home. Now you have to go save the house. Mom needs me here. She needs you there. Caleb looked at her. She wasn't the scared runaway anymore. She was a Vance. Okay, Caleb said. He pulled up to the emergency entrance. Vanessa, Jack, and the 3 kids jumped out. Go, Vanessa shouted over the wind. Go save our home. Caleb floored it. The van fishtailed as he sped toward downtown. When he arrived at the Vance Hotel, it looked like a war zone. Floodlights lit up the street. Temporary fencing had been erected around the entrance. A massive dumpster was parked on the sidewalk. And standing in the center of the chaos, wearing a cashmere coat and shouting at a police officer, was Marcus Thorne. I want those doors breached. Marcus yelled. I have a court order. Inside the hotel lobby, Through the glass doors, Caleb could see his crew. Big Tony, Luis, Sarah. They had barricaded the doors with stacks of drywall and scaffolding. They were standing guard with sledgehammers and crowbars. They were holding the line. Caleb screeched the van to a halt right on the sidewalk, blocking the path of the demolition trucks. He jumped out. "Hey!" Caleb screamed. "Get away from my building." Marcus turned. He saw Caleb. He sneered. "The carpenter returns," Marcus said. "I thought you took the money and ran." "I tore up your check," Caleb said, walking past the police line. "And I'm not running." "Officer," Marcus shouted. "Arrest this man. He is trespassing." A police officer stepped forward. "Sir, step back. I'm the director of restoration," Caleb said, holding up his ID badge. "I have a contract." "Your contract was terminated," Marcus said smugly. "I am the acting CEO, and I say you are fired." Marcus stepped closer to Caleb. "It's over, Reed," Marcus whispered. "Eleanor is dying. The building is sold. You lost. Go back to your basement." Caleb looked at the barricaded doors. He looked at his friends inside, fighting for a paycheck they might never see. "You're right, Marcus," Caleb said softly. "Eleanor is sick." He looked Marcus in the eye. "But she's not alone anymore." Caleb's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. It was a text from a number he didn't know. A photo. It showed Eleanor in the hospital bed. Her eyes were open, and holding her hand, sitting on the edge of the bed, was Vanessa. Below the photo was a text. "She's awake. We told her everything. Stall him for 12 hours. The Queen is coming." Caleb smiled. A slow, dangerous smile. "What are you smiling at?" Marcus snapped. "Christmas," Caleb said. "It's a time for miracles, Marcus." Caleb turned to the police officer. "Officer, this building is a designated historic landmark pending review. If you let them touch one brick before the hearing on Tuesday, you are violating City Code 44B. I suggest you call the mayor." The officer hesitated. He looked at the demolition crew. He looked at the barricade. "We can't demo tonight anyway," the officer said to Marcus. "The storm is too bad. Liability issues." "This is ridiculous," Marcus screamed. "I pay your salary." "Actually," Caleb said, "the taxpayers pay him. You just pay bribes." Marcus lunged at Caleb. The officer held him back. "Go home, Marcus," Caleb said. "Get some sleep. You're going to have a rough day tomorrow." Marcus straightened his coat. He glared at Caleb with pure hatred. "Tomorrow morning," Marcus hissed. "Christmas Eve. I will come back with the SWAT team if I have to. And I will bulldoze this place with you inside it." He stormed off to his limousine. Caleb walked to the glass doors. Big Tony moved the barricade. Caleb stepped inside the warm, dusty lobby. His crew cheered. Mia ran out from the back office where Sarah had been watching her. She stayed behind when Caleb went to the hospital, safely with the crew. "Daddy," Mia yelled. "Did you win?" Caleb picked her up. He hugged her tight. "Not yet, baby," Caleb said, looking at the grand staircase he had spent months restoring. "But reinforcements are here." The hospital midnight. Eleanor Vance lay in her hospital bed. She felt weak, but the crushing weight on her chest was gone. She looked to her right. Vanessa was asleep in the chair, her head resting on Jack's shoulder. She looked to the foot of the bed. Two boys, her grandsons, were sleeping on cots the nurses had brought in. She wasn't alone. She looked at her hand. Vanessa was holding it, even in her sleep. Eleanor closed her eyes. She thought about the hotel. She thought about Caleb fighting Marcus in the snow. "Arthur," she whispered to the ceiling. "You tried to break us, but you failed." She squeezed Vanessa's hand. Vanessa stirred. "Mom," Vanessa whispered. "You okay?" "I'm fine, Nessie," Eleanor said, using the childhood nickname she hadn't spoken in 12 years. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" "About tomorrow," Eleanor said. Her voice was stronger now. The steel was coming back into her spine. "Marcus thinks I'm dying. He thinks he can steal my company and destroy my home." Eleanor sat up slightly. "Help me up, Vanessa." "Mom, you can't." "The doctor said." "I don't care what the doctor said," Eleanor said. "I have a hotel to open, and I have a CFO to fire." Vanessa smiled. It was the same rebellious, fiery smile she had when she was 19. "Okay, Mom," Vanessa said. "Let's go to work." Christmas Eve morning in Chicago broke cold and bright. The sun reflected off the fresh snow, blindingly white. Outside the Vance Hotel, the mood was anything but festive. It looked like a crime scene. Police barricades held back a crowd of curious onlookers and news crews. Behind the barricades, heavy demolition machinery sat idling, their diesel engines rumbling like angry beasts. Marcus Thorne stood on the steps of the hotel, surrounded by microphones. He wore a cashmere coat and a look of grave concern. He was giving the performance of his life. "It is with a heavy heart," Marcus told the reporters, "that we must move forward with the emergency stabilization of this site. Due to the negligence of the former project director, the structure has become unstable. For public safety, we must begin partial demolition immediately." He paused, looking sad. "Mrs. Vance is currently incapacitated. As acting CEO, I am making the hard choice to protect her legacy from further embarrassment." Inside the lobby, Caleb watched Marcus on a portable TV set up on a sawhorse. "He's good," Big Tony grunted, gripping a sledgehammer. "I almost believe him." "He's a snake," Sarah spat. "Caleb, the police are getting ready. They're going to breach the doors in 10 minutes. Caleb looked around the lobby. It was finished. The mahogany shone. The mosaic tiles sparkled. The grand chandelier, which they had found in pieces in the basement and painstakingly rewired, hung above them like a crown of diamonds. "We hold the line," Caleb said. "Just a little longer." Outside, a police captain approached Marcus. "Mr. Thorne, we're ready to clear the trespassers." "Do it," Marcus said. "Arrest them all, especially the carpenter." The police moved forward. The crowd tensed. Honk! A loud, deep horn blasted through the air. The police stopped. Marcus frowned. A massive black tour bus, the kind rock bands use, turned the corner. It was followed by a white ambulance with its lights flashing, but no siren. The convoy rolled right past the police barricade. The bus parked directly in front of the demolition trucks, blocking them completely. "What is this?" Marcus shouted. "Get that bus out of here." The door of the bus hissed open. First, Jack stepped out. He had his guitar case in one hand and looked like he hadn't slept in a week, but he was grinning. Then, two boys jumped out. Arthur and Leo. They looked around at the cameras and waved. Then, a woman stepped down. Vanessa. She wore a simple winter coat, but she carried herself with a regality that made the reporters hush. She looked at the hotel. She looked at Marcus. Marcus's jaw dropped. He recognized her. It was the ghost. "Vanessa," he whispered. But Vanessa didn't speak. She turned back to the bus. She reached out her hand, and Eleanor Vance stepped out. She wasn't in a hospital gown. She was wearing a red silk suit and a long fur coat. She leaned heavily on a cane, and she looked pale, but she was standing. She was upright. A gasp went through the crowd. The reporters started shouting questions. "Mrs. Vance, we thought you were in a coma." "Mrs. Vance, is the building being demolished?" Eleanor ignored them. She walked up the steps, Vanessa on one arm, the cane in the other. She stopped in front of Marcus. Marcus looked like he was going to vomit. "Eleanor." The doctors said." "The doctors said I needed rest," Eleanor said, her voice amplified by the reporters' microphones. "They didn't say I was dead. I was protecting the company," Marcus stammered, backing up. "The building, it's dangerous. I had to act. The only dangerous thing on this property, Marcus, is you." Eleanor turned to the police captain. "Captain, why are you arresting my employees?" "Mr. Thorne said they were trespassing, ma'am. He said he is the acting CEO." "He isn't," Eleanor said. "As of 5 minutes ago, the board received my electronic signature. Marcus Thorne is fired for cause embezzlement, fraud, and corporate sabotage." She pulled a folder from her coat. "I had my auditors look into the inspector you hired, Marcus. Mr. Garris. Turns out he received a $50,000 deposit from your personal account the day he shut down my site." Marcus looked at the cameras. He looked at the police. He realized the trap had snapped shut. "You can't prove that," Marcus hissed. "I don't have to," Eleanor said loudly. "The police can do that." She nodded to the captain. "Please remove this man from my property. He is trespassing." The captain didn't hesitate. "Mr. Thorne, come with us." As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, kicking and screaming about lawyers, Eleanor turned to the glass doors of the hotel. She knocked on the glass with her cane. Tap, tap, tap. Inside, Caleb let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for a month. "Open the doors," Caleb shouted. Big Tony and Luis pulled the barricades down. They unlocked the chains. The doors swung open. Caleb stood there, covered in dust, wearing his work boots. Eleanor stood there in her silk and fur. They looked at each other. "You're late," Caleb smiled, tears stinging his eyes. Traffic was murder. Eleanor smiled back. She stepped inside. She looked up at the chandelier. She looked at the restored marble. She breathed in the smell of lemon polish and cedar. It's perfect, she whispered. Vanessa stepped up beside her. She looked around the lobby where she had grown up. It looks exactly like I remember, Vanessa said, her voice trembling. Before everything went wrong. No, Eleanor said, taking her daughter's hand. It's better. Because you're here. That evening, the grand opening gala. The hotel was glowing. Floodlights illuminated the limestone facade. The Vance Hotel sign on the roof buzzed to life in bright neon gold for the first time in 15 years. Inside, the ballroom was packed. 500 of Chicago's elite were there, the same people who had snubbed Caleb at the board meetings. But tonight, the dress code was different. Caleb had invited the neighborhood. The apprentices were there in their Sunday best. Big Tony was wearing a tuxedo that was bursting at the seams. Luis was showing a senator the vintage wiring diagram. Caleb stood by the punch bowl, wearing a new suit Eleanor had bought him. It fit perfectly. Mia was dancing in the middle of the floor with Arthur and Leo. They were spinning in circles, laughing. You clean up nice, Carpenter, a voice said. Caleb turned. Vanessa was standing there. She held a glass of champagne. You too, Caleb said. How is she doing? She's holding court, Vanessa pointed. Eleanor was sitting in a velvet armchair near the stage. She looked tired, but radiant. She was holding court with the mayor, introducing him to Jack. This is my son-in-law, Eleanor was saying loudly. He's a brilliant musician. He runs a school in Nashville. Vanessa smiled, wiping a tear away. I never thought I'd see this. I thought she hated us. She never hated you, Caleb said. She just hated herself. You saved her, Caleb. You know that. I just fixed the walls, Caleb shrugged. You saved her. You came back. The music stopped. A spotlight hit the stage. Eleanor stood up. She walked to the microphone. The room went silent. Welcome, Eleanor said. 30 years ago, my husband and I opened this hotel. We thought we were building a legacy. We thought legacy was about stone and money. She looked down at the crowd. She found Caleb. I was wrong. Legacy isn't what you build. It's who you build it for. She beckoned to Caleb. Caleb, come up here. Caleb froze. Mia pushed him. Go, Daddy. Be big. Caleb walked up the stairs. He stood next to Eleanor. The spotlight was blinding. This man, Eleanor said, putting her hand on his shoulder, is the director of this hotel. He is a master craftsman. He was rejected by every firm in this city because he didn't have the right piece of paper. Well, their loss is my gain. The crowd applauded. But he is more than that, Eleanor continued. He taught me that you can't restore a building without fixing the foundation. And he taught me that the foundation of everything is family. She turned to the side of the stage. Vanessa? Vanessa walked out, holding Jack's hand. This is my daughter, Eleanor said, her voice breaking. And my family. The applause was thunderous. Tonight is a celebration of second chances, Eleanor said. So, I have one more announcement. She looked at Caleb. I am stepping down as CEO of Sterling Hotels. Gasps ripple through the room. I have missed 12 years of my daughter's life. I have missed my grandson's growing up. I am not missing another day. I am retiring. She turned to Caleb. I am handing the keys to the kingdom to a new board of directors. My daughter, Vanessa, will oversee the charitable trust. And Caleb Reed. Caleb will be the new vice president of operations for the entire company. Caleb's jaw dropped. Eleanor, I can't. I'm a carpenter. And Jesus was a carpenter, Eleanor whispered, winking at him. You'll figure it out. You have good hands. She turned back to the crowd. Now, my daughter used to sing in this room when it was empty. I would like to hear her sing when it is full. Vanessa looked terrified. Jack handed her a microphone. He picked up an acoustic guitar. Sing, Nessie, Jack whispered. Vanessa took a breath. She looked at her mother. She looked at her kids. She began to sing. Silent Night. Holy Night. Her voice was clear, haunting, and beautiful. It filled the massive ballroom. It bounced off the gold leaf ceiling Caleb had scraped. It echoed off the marble floors Sarah had polished. Caleb walked off the stage. He picked up Mia. He stood next to Eleanor. You did it, Caleb whispered to her. We did it, Eleanor said, leaning her head on his shoulder. For the first time in a long time, the ghosts were gone. The hotel wasn't haunted anymore. It was alive. 1 year later, Christmas Day. The penthouse smelled like turkey, sage, and chaos. It was no longer a silent museum. Toys were scattered on the Persian rug. A guitar was leaning against the grand piano. The dining table was fully extended. There were 12 chairs. At the head of the table sat Eleanor. She looked healthier. She had gained weight. She was wearing a Christmas sweater that said, "World's Best Grandma." On her right sat Vanessa and Jack. On her left sat Caleb and Mia. Next to them were the boys, Arthur and Leo. And down the table were Mrs. Higgins, Big Tony, and Sarah. It was a motley crew. A billionaire, a carpenter, artists, laborers, and kids. Okay, settle down, Caleb said, tapping his glass. He was wearing a suit, but he had taken the tie off. He looked comfortable. Happy. Speech, Arthur yelled. No speeches, Vanessa laughed. Let's eat. Just one thing, Eleanor said. The table quieted down. Eleanor looked at them. She looked at the full table. She looked at the snow falling outside the window. The same snow she had watched alone for so many years. She looked at Caleb. A year ago, Eleanor said, I sat in a restaurant with an empty chair. I thought my life was over. I thought my story was written. She reached out and took Mia's hand on one side and Arthur's on the other. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for filling the chairs. You're welcome, Grandma, Mia beamed. Can we eat now? Tony asked. The turkey smells amazing. Dig in, Caleb said. Laughter exploded around the table. Dishes were passed. Stories were shared. Caleb looked at Eleanor. She caught his eye and winked. He looked at Mia, who was laughing at a joke Leo told. He looked at the view of the city, a city he was now helping to build, not just fix. He realized he hadn't just restored a hotel. He had restored a life. And as the snow fell gently over Chicago, covering the scars of the city in a blanket of white, Caleb Reed knew one thing for sure. The blueprint was finished. The foundation was solid. And nobody was eating alone tonight.